Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 2. Now let's start the fanfic. Only the whisper of the wind. After a few breaths, the shadow of the dead plum tree in the corner seemed to stir. A dark figure separated from the shadow and silently appeared behind Arashi. He was dressed entirely in black, with no chakra fluctuations, and even his breathing and heartbeat were imperceptible. Then a hoarse voice broke the silence. His value depends on what you need him for, my lord. As for how long he'll be useful, I will keep an eye on him. Arashi showed no surprise. He finished the cold tea in his cup. The man in black was Aono Saku, his Anbu. Publicly, he was only a steward managing several of the Daimyo Manor's businesses, an ordinary merchant. But no one knew that this silent man carried a surname capable of shaking the entire ninja world. Senju. Arashi's gaze fell on Saku, and his thoughts drifted back several years. Back then, the second Hokage, Senju Tobarama, a man who embodied realism, had planted a hidden peace when he established the alliance with the daimyo's household. He personally chose a branch of his clan with pure bloodline, erased their existence as ninja, and secretly sent them to the fire capital. This group of Senju, named Anbu, carried a single mission: to protect the daimyo line for generations, becoming his unseen eyes and deadly blade in the shadows. However, due to the unexpected death of the previous daimyo, the transition of command was interrupted, and this force was forgotten for decades. It was not until Arashi, at the age of 12, discovered a secret decree handwritten by Senju Tobarama in a hidden compartment of his late father's study that he awakened this dormant power. Using that decree, he reactivated the lost Anbu. After taking control of them, he began recruiting elite ninja from across the world, expanding the Anbu's reach, just as he had done today with Biwajuzo. During the bloody succession struggle years ago, it was Saku and his Anbu who had blocked countless assassination attempts and crushed every conspiracy, allowing Arashi to emerge victorious. The strength displayed during the delegation's arrival earlier was merely a fraction of his Anbu's true power. This was his real foundation. Even without the system, the absolute loyalty and terrifying strength of the Senju Anbu alone was enough to make any who underestimated him pay the ultimate price. Any new developments from Konoha? Arashi asked calmly, pulling his thoughts back to the present. No movements, Saku replied, but 30 people with suspicious behavior entered the capital this afternoon. From their actions, it can be confirmed they are root ninja. After entering the city, they split up. 2 of them went directly to the west side and have not returned. Did you send someone to follow them? Yes. Jin is trailing them. Every one of their actions is under surveillance. Arashi's expression did not change. It seems Danzo still could not hold back. He had expected this. Once the budget cuts were announced, Danzo would inevitably act, but even he had not thought it would be this soon. There was no need to guess what a man with only 10 points of loyalty would do. He would naturally seek out the remnants who failed in the last power struggle. What about those rats? Arashi asked. Have they contacted the Konoha guests? My lord, they have, Saku said hoarsely. It has been confirmed that their leaders are your third brother, Chiba Shu, and his uncle, Saionji Takashi. They have gathered around 200 assassins and rogue samurai. They are hiding in the sewers beneath the city's west side, using it as a temporary base. As for those 2 root ninja, during their meeting with Saionji Takashi, they handed him a scroll. A scroll? Do you know what is inside? Unclear. Jin did not dare get too close. Arashi tapped his fingers lightly against the table. He did not need to guess. The scroll no doubt contained Danzo's promise to support his useless brother once the deed was done. To think Danzo wanted to trade a mere piece of paper for the life of the daimyo. He was still the same schemer. But that was fine. Everything was unfolding exactly as Arashi had expected. Should we eliminate them now? Saku asked quietly. With the power of the Anbu, erasing such a ragtag group would be effortless. No. Arashi raised his hand to stop him. Fishing takes patience. Let them keep preparing. Whatever they lack, give it to them. I want them to grow arrogant, to believe destiny favors them and victory is in their grasp. I want every rat to crawl out of its hole that day. Arashi turned, the moonlight casting half his face in silver light, his gaze cold and murderous. Issue the order. Keep them under close watch, but do not alert them. It is time for the delegations from the 4 nations and those people from Konoha to witness the true majesty of the Fire Daimyo. As you command. Saku bowed lower, feeling the overwhelming and ruthless will emanating from his young lord. You may go. Yes. As soon as the words left Arashi's mouth, Saku's figure melted back into the shadows and vanished. The courtyard returned to silence. The sky was beginning to pale. A new day was about to dawn. And what awaited him was the day after tomorrow, the grand coronation ceremony prepared just for him. At the same time, Fire Capital, West Side, underground sewers. The cold, damp air carried a nauseating stench of mold and decay. A faint fire flickered over a dry stone platform, illuminating several twisted faces. Saionji Takashi held a scroll, studying it carefully. Beside him, a sallow-faced young man with sunken cheeks, Chiba Shu, watched impatiently. Uncle, stop reading. Ask them already how much support Konoha is offering. Shu's voice was hoarse and trembling with excitement as he stared at the 2 masked root ninja before him. Shu-sama, please calm yourself, Saionji Takashi said soothingly, then turned to the 2 root operatives, bowing humbly. Gentlemen, we understand Danzo-sama's promise. But on the day of the ceremony, the defenses will be tight. With our limited manpower, one of the root ninja finally spoke, his voice cold. Our mission is to ensure Arashi dies at the coronation ceremony. He did not answer the question, merely stated the command. The scroll makes it clear. Once Arashi dies, Danzo-sama will intervene personally, stabilize the Fire Capital, and recognize you, Shu-sama, as the sole legitimate daimyo of the Land of Fire. Shu roared, I am asking if you will take action. Do not forget, that bastard Arashi also has ninja guarding him. Rest assured, Shu-sama, the root ninja replied calmly. Our presence here is the greatest assistance. When you strike, those ninja guards will be handled by someone else. Danzo-sama only cares about results. The process is yours to create. Hearing that, Saionji Takashi let out a quiet breath of relief. Shu, however, burst into wild laughter, his eyes gleaming with madness. Good, good, good. He shouted the word 3 times, clenching his fists. As long as I can that bastard, I will do anything. I will take back everything I lost, the throne, the wealth, and that woman, Kiyotsuki Yui. His voice was filled with jealousy and hatred. The 2 root ninja exchanged glances, saying nothing more. A moment later, their figures blurred and melted into the darkness. In the sewers, only Chiba Shu's crazed laughter echoed endlessly. To be continued. Chapter 17. The eve of the bloody ceremony. The day before the coronation ceremony. Daimyo Manor, Main Hall. The hall was brightly lit, as if it were daytime. Hundreds of attendants and ceremonial officials moved about, yet the entire place was silent. Everyone's face carried a solemn expression. Arashi stood on the high platform in the center of the main hall. He wore a layered Junihito robe embroidered with golden flame patterns that shimmered in the candlelight. 2 elderly ceremonial officials knelt before him, carefully adjusting the hem of his robe. Your Highness, for tomorrow's ceremony, you must enter through the Suzukuman gate and walk 99 steps. When ascending the platform, Your left foot must go first, symbolizing the treading down of the old and the creation of a new chapter. Chief ceremonial official Yamano's voice was aged and respectful, explaining every detail, afraid of even the smallest mistake. He had already repeated these instructions to Arashi no less than 10 times. Arashi stood motionless, his expression blank, letting them adjust his attire. These tedious rituals were utterly boring to him. Compared to the coronation itself, tomorrow's grand performance of executing the tyrant would be far more interesting. But to make that performance convincing, he had to play his part well. The young ruler about to take control of the world. His gaze drifted unconsciously toward the west side of the city. West of the city, underground waterways. This place was like another world entirely. A foul stench filled the damp air. Water dripped steadily from cracks in the stone ceiling, splashing into the murky channels below. In a corner, a fire flickered weakly. Over 200 samurai and ronin sat or stood nearby, silently wiping their weapons. The unsteady firelight reflected off their blades, illuminating their crazed faces. They were remnants of defeated factions from the succession struggle. Desperate men who had already gambled everything and lost. Saionji Takashi stood on a raised platform, frowning as he looked down at the foul water below. His thoughts were as chaotic as the sewage. Unease gnawed at him. A deep, restless unease. Behind him came the sound of labored breathing. Chiba Shu's eyes were bloodshot, his face flushed with feverish excitement. He stared fixedly at the only passage leading upward, like a wild beast caged too long, both restless and eager. Uncle, do you think we can really trust Danzo? His voice was hoarse, trembling with conflicting emotions. Trust. Saionji Takashi sneered inwardly. He knew better than anyone that a schemer like Danzo was simply using them. They were just a blade. And once used, a blade could easily be discarded. But they had no other path left. Saionji said nothing, merely lifting his gaze toward the distant Daimyo Manor. Daimyo Manor, Main Hall. When receiving the royal seal, you must raise it high above your head with both hands, then turn to face the civil and military officials, and face all the people under heaven. Yamano continued his endless explanations. As he turned to adjust the long sash behind Arashi's robe, and no one was watching, Kiyotsuki Yui, who stood quietly nearby, slipped out through a hidden side door. Her movements were quick, and she held a small folded paper in her hand. In an unnoticed corner of the corridor, she passed the note to an old servant trimming a bonsai, then calmly returned to her place. The entire exchange took less than a dozen breaths. When she resumed her position, her breathing was steady, her face unchanged, as if she had never moved at all. None of the guards or ceremonial officials noticed. Only Arashi, standing silently on the platform, revealed the faintest smile, one filled with amusement. He made no sound and did not even glance in her direction, as though nothing had happened. The subtle expression vanished in an instant. His consciousness spread outward from the Daimyo Manor, flowing across the city like a tide. He began observing other, more interesting lights. At the Konoha Annex, Minato's light shone brightly and steady. He was buried in Hokage paperwork, a diligent young man. Hiruzen's light was dimmer. He sat alone in his room, quietly smoking his pipe. And Danzo's light flickered coldly, like an ominous star. He was waiting too, deep in the sewers. Still no word. Chiba Shu suddenly turned and grabbed Saionji Takashi's arm, his nails digging into flesh. The man we planted in the city guard said he'd deliver the final defense map for the ceremony today. Don't rush, Saionji replied, forcing calm. At a time like this, you must keep your head calm. How can I be calm? Chiba Shu shoved him away, his face twisting in hysteria. Tomorrow is that bastard's coronation. If we fail, we all die. I don't want to die. I am the true Daimyo. That throne is mine, mine. His roar echoed through the narrow tunnel. The outlaws around him turned their heads, their eyes filled with a mix of pity and scorn. A wave of helplessness washed over Sanji. Was this truly the man he had chosen to follow? At that moment, a faint whistle sounded in the distance. It was their agreed signal. Everyone tensed, their eyes snapping toward the dark end of the tunnel. A man in civilian clothes stumbled toward them, his face glowing with excitement. Sir, Shu-sama, we got it. The defense map has been obtained. He presented a scroll as if offering a sacred treasure. Chiba Shu snatched it eagerly and unrolled it. Sanji leaned in close. The scroll detailed the guard deployment for tomorrow's ceremony, the patrol routes, even the shift changes. Excellent. Chiba Shu's eyes gleamed with feverish light. Look here. The East Tower has the weakest defense. Our men can break through from there. And here, when Arashi ascends the platform, he'll only have 12 guards. We have just one chance. He jabbed his finger at the map, his voice rising with excitement. The air in the tunnel ignited. The outlaws' eyes burned with sudden fervor. But as Sanji examined the overly detailed map, his unease deepened. Too smooth. Everything was going too smoothly. He pressed for the map's source, and when he learned it had been delivered by Yui, he finally exhaled in relief. Maybe he was just imagining things. Daimyo Manor, Main Hall. The rehearsal had ended. The ceremonial officials in attendance withdrew. Only Arashi and Yui remained. Arashi had shed the heavy robes and changed into his usual clothes, finally feeling at ease. He walked slowly to the hall's great doors and pushed them open. The night wind swept in, cool and clean. He looked down at the glowing city below. Countless lights stretched into the distance, forming a sea of gold. His gaze drifted past the rooftops and settled on the darkened west side of the city. The stage is set. His calm voice carried on the night breeze. Yui stood behind him, head bowed, her heart pounding uncontrollably. She thought he was reflecting on the ceremony. But something felt wrong. Arashi suddenly smiled, his tone laced with mockery. The bait has been cast, and the fish have taken it. Yui froze. What bait? What fish? Do you know why I kept you by my side? Arashi's voice echoed softly. Her lips parted, but she said nothing. He chuckled quietly. You think it's because of your beauty, don't you? He shook his head, his tone faintly pitying. Would a ruler keep an enemy close just for a pretty face? Kyatsuki Yui, you overestimate yourself and underestimate me. A chill shot down her spine. Enemy. He even knew she was his enemy. You are beautiful, but that's all. In the world of power, beauty is the most useless thing. Arashi turned, the moonlight outlining his sharp features and deep, unreadable eyes. He walked up to her and placed a hand on her shoulder. His touch was gentle, but his gaze was icy cold. Now, we just wait for those rats hiding in the sewers to crawl into the cage I prepared. And to that, I should thank you. If not for you, this play wouldn't have started so soon. Each word struck her like a knife. Only now did she understand. The note she risked her life to send, the message she believed would change fate, it had all been part of his trap. He had never tried to stop her. He had simply let the trap spring shut on its own. An icy dread crept through her as her body trembled violently. A devil. He was a devil. Arashi watched her despair as though admiring a work of art. Moments later, he turned away. Guards. Take her away. Once the rats are caught, I'll deal with her myself. To be continued. Chapter 18. The Daimyo ascends the throne. The 47th year of Konoha, autumn. Calendar annotation. Auspicious for sacrifices, blessings, and enthronement. Before dawn, a thin layer of morning mist enveloped the fire capital. But the city had already awakened. Countless civilians poured into the streets, dressed in their finest clothes, faces beaming with excitement, forming a human tide that surged toward the city center. Mom, hurry up. Sanro said that today at the square, not only will there be blessing cakes, but Daimyo-sama's manor also prepared a huge pot of meat stew, and everyone gets a share. A half-grown child shouted, tugging at his mother's sleeve. Run slower, don't fall. The woman scolded, though her pace quickened. Looking at her son's new clothes, her face softened with maternal affection. If it weren't for Daimyo-sama waiving those harsh taxes and the city workshops paying fair wages, let alone new clothes, we wouldn't even know how to survive this winter. Ha! Food and clothing are nothing. The real thing is seeing Daimyo-sama with our own eyes. A burly, bearded man nearby laughed loudly. If not for Daimyo-sama, would we be living so well now? Ha ha ha. Yes, yes, my family has meat with every meal now, all thanks to Daimyo-sama's grace. Laughter and chatter filled the air. Brand new flame banners fluttered along the streets. Armored guards stood at every intersection, their postures firm and eyes sharp, yet their presence made the civilians feel secure. The sun pierced through the morning mist, casting golden light that gilded the city. Today was the day the new king ascended the throne. It was the day the land of fire turned a new page. Unlike the festive crowd in the square, the mood on the viewing platform was much more restrained. Envoys from the four great nations were already seated, and beneath their calm expressions, a silent tension lingered. The envoy from Kumo stood with his arms crossed, his face full of impatience. He looked at the dense crowd of civilians below, his expression openly disdainful. A bunch of lowlifes, and they're allowed to witness a grand ceremony like this. The land of fire grows more unruly by the day. The envoy from Iowa narrowed his eyes slightly, maintaining a calm composure. The envoy from Suna had a weathered face and said nothing. Behind him, a masked kunoichi vigilantly scanned the surroundings. In the delegation from Kiri, the young noble yawned lazily, his face gloomy. Juzo stood behind him, head bowed, no one knowing what he was thinking. From the corner of his eye, he occasionally glanced toward another guard, Mei Terumi. She was dressed sharply today, highlighting her graceful figure. Her face was calm and aloof, though her heart was far from tranquil. The sincere admiration and affection on the civilians' faces below puzzled her. In her eyes, weren't daimyo and nobles all who exploited the common folk? Why was the scene here completely different from what she had seen in Kiri? On the other side, in Konoha's viewing area, Minato sat at the forefront, his golden hair glinting in the sunlight. Looking at the sea of people before him, each face filled with hope, a surge of emotion rose within him. The will of the people was the foundation of the land of fire. For the first time, he deeply felt the true weight of the words, nation, and people. Behind him, Hiruzen remained silent. The old man wore plain clothes, holding an unlit pipe in his hand. His cloudy eyes swept over the passionate civilians, then the alert guards, and finally rested on the 99 steps leading up to the supreme throne. That was once a place he had to look up to. And now, he was about to lose even the right to do so. In the corner, Danzo's single eye gleamed coldly. His hands, hidden within his sleeves, were clenched tightly. At the same time, on the east side of the square, in the underground wine cellar of a tavern. It was dark and damp, filled with the sour stench of fermenting wine. Nearly 100 desperados were crammed inside, the stench of sweat mixed with the odor of poison smeared on their weapons, creating a nauseating air. Shu and Takashi stood at the very front. Through the cellar's small ventilation shaft, they could hear the cheers outside, growing louder and louder. The sound was like red-hot iron needles piercing Shu's heart. "Uncle, it started outside." His voice trembled, lips pale. Takashi's face was equally pale. He gripped Shu's shoulder tightly, growling, "Stay calm. Remember the plan. Wait for the bells. When you hear the ninth bell, that's our signal to move." Shu gritted his teeth, staring at the thin ray of light through the shaft, eyes bloodshot. "The throne, Yui, wealth, they should all be mine." He roared silently in his heart again and again. The cheers outside were like a death knell, and also the flame igniting his ambition. Dong! A deep, drawn-out bell chime echoed from the highest point of the Daimyo manor, resounding across the entire city. The noisy square instantly fell silent. In the cellar, every desperado gripped their weapon tightly. Shu's breathing nearly stopped. 1, 2, 3. When the ninth bell reverberated across the sky, Takashi suddenly opened his eyes, madness flashing within them. He said nothing, only raised his hand sharply and let out a suppressed roar. Attack! Above the square, silence reigned. Tens of thousands of civilians, the delegations of the four great nations, Konoha's high-ranking officials, all eyes turned to the end of the 99 steps. Under everyone's gaze, the heavy vermilion gate symbolizing supreme authority slowly opened. Chief Ceremonial Officer Yamano, dressed in the most solemn ceremonial robes and holding the congratulatory text, walked out step by step. He reached the top of the steps, facing the heavens and the gathered crowd, and chanted in a loud, clear voice. "The auspicious hour has arrived. Welcome, the land of fire's new daimyo, Chiba Arashi-sama." As his words fell, impassioned and elegant music soared into the sky. A figure appeared behind the vermilion gate. He wore a ceremonial robe embroidered with golden flame patterns, a golden crown symbolizing the monarch's position upon his head. Just by standing there silently, an indescribable majesty spread across the square. The impatience on the Kumo envoy's face vanished, and his bulky frame instinctively leaned forward. A sharp glint flickered in the Iowa envoy's eyes. Minato was struck deeply. That bearing, that overwhelming presence, he suddenly realized the gap between the Hokage and the daimyo might be far greater than he had imagined. Arashi moved. His left foot stepped forward first. He ascended the first step. His pace was slow but steady. Each step echoed solemnly in the silent square. The civilians below unconsciously held their breath, faces full of reverence and awe. Step after step, Arashi climbed the 99 steps. He arrived at the elevated platform carved from a single massive stone. At the center of the platform, on a jade tray, a crystal completely crimson in color lay quietly. The national stone, a symbol of the nation's supreme power. Yamano's voice rang out again, trembling with excitement. "Please, Daimyo-sama, accept the nation's stone, restore balance to the land and bring peace to its people." Arashi slowly stepped forward. He extended his hands, his movements solemn and deliberate. The entire square was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. Everyone widened their eyes, witnessing a moment destined for history. Arashi's hands were about to touch the national stone. At that exact moment, "Kill!" A blood-curdling roar erupted. "Kill that usurping tyrant! Avenge the former daimyo!" Boom! The corner tower on the east side of the square exploded violently. The terrifying blast swept away nearby civilians. Dozens of dark figures burst out from the smoke. They wielded long blades, eyes bloodshot, charging madly toward the platform. Chaos erupted among the crowd. Screams and cries echoed through the air. "Protect Daimyo-sama!" The guards roared, forming a human wall against the attackers. But this was only the beginning. "Move out!" From the crowds in the west, north, and south, another 100 ambushers suddenly erupted. They formed a massive encirclement from all directions, their target clear, Arashi. The gleam of blades, flashes of steel, and blood instantly stained the sacred square red. An assassination attempt on the new king. A long-planned murder plot, unfolding under the gaze of all. Had begun. To be continued. Chapter 19. Trapped. The plaza instantly turned into hell. People ran in terror, pushing and trampling one another in panic. The original joy and solemnity were shattered by the sudden assassination. Protect Daimyo-sama. The city guards closest to the high platform reacted first. They formed a wall with their bodies, raised their spears and shields, and roared as they charged toward the desperados emerging from the smoke and dust. Clang. Blades clashed with spear tips, sparks flying as hot blood splattered. Minato. Hiruzen stood up abruptly, the pipe in his hand cracking. Minato's golden hair fluttered as his figure flashed, about to rush forward. The Konoha ninja all rose at once, their intent flaring as they prepared to assist. But just as they were about to move, whoosh, 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 a series of sharp sounds came from all around. More than 10 dark figures silently appeared in front of them, blocking their way. They were dressed in the Daimyo Manor's guard uniforms, yet an eerie aura radiated from them, the smell of blood thick in the air. Everyone, please calm down. The leading dark figure's voice was hoarse. He didn't turn around, only extended a black-gloved hand in a halting gesture. Minato's forward motion stopped abruptly, his golden eyes filled with shock. Their concealment was flawless. Even he hadn't noticed them before now. In that brief pause, the assassins broke through the city guard's defense line. With sinister grins, they were about to step onto the high platform. At that very moment, another wave of sharp sounds filled the air. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. From beneath the high platform, behind the pillars of the main hall, and even from cracks in the stone floor, over 30 dark figures shot out. They were silent, carrying a chilling intent, like a vast net that instantly closed around the high platform. Clang, clang, clang. Intense sounds of metal clashing erupted all at once. The battle on the high platform turned fierce in an instant. Over 30 Anbu engaged the assassins. Amidst the flashing blades, they drove all the attackers off the platform. This sudden development made Shu and Takashi, who were hiding in the crowd, extremely anxious. In their plan, this was supposed to be a lightning-fast strike. But the surrounding guards had already begun to reform their encirclement, cold spear tips closing in from every direction. If they delayed any longer, everything would be lost. Under immense pressure, Shu's psychological defenses completely collapsed. He looked like a madman, his crimson eyes fixed on the viewing platform as he roared with all his might. Danzo-sama. Shimura Danzo. You promised me. Where are your people? Hurry up and act. His roar silenced the entire plaza. On the viewing platform, the envoys from the 4 nations looked bewildered, and the people of Konoha could barely hide their shock. Act. A sharp shout came from behind the Konoha delegation. Boom. After a brief silence, nearly 30 figures wearing pure white masks suddenly erupted from among the fleeing civilians in the plaza. Root. Their movements were swift and coordinated. Ignoring the surrounding guards trying to stop them, their short blades drew arcs of death as they charged straight toward the high platform. This sudden turn instantly broke the balance of battle. The root ninjas and desperados converged, and with unstoppable force, they stormed the high platform. Above the high platform, blades flashed, flesh and blood flew, ending intent filled the air. Wind release, vacuum sphere. A root ninja took a deep breath, firing several rapidly spinning air bullets like cannonballs toward an Anbu. The Anbu didn't dodge. He quickly formed hand signs, and a thick wall of earth rose from the ground. Earth release, Earth-style wall. Boom, boom, boom. The air bullets exploded against the wall, blasting craters into it and sending debris flying, but they couldn't break through. At that moment, another root ninja appeared behind him like a ghost, his poisoned short blade thrusting silently toward his back. but a katana imbued with pale green chakra blocked from the side. When the blades collided, wind attribute chakra erupted, sending the root ninja flying backward. Water release, water dragon bullet. On another side, an Anbu opened his mouth and released a torrent of water, sending two desperados tumbling through the air. Limbs flew, lives were lost one after another, and blood soaked the high platform. From afar, Arashi's figure looked like a lone boat in a raging storm, ready to capsize at any moment. Danzo, you. Hiruzen trembled all over, his head snapping sharply toward his old comrade. His eyes were blazing with fury. Minato looked confused, glancing from Danzo to Hiruzen. Uchiha Fugaku's Sharingan spun rapidly, the three tomo rotating before fading again. Nara Shikaku closed his eyes in frustration, gritting his teeth as he muttered, "That idiot." On the other side, the reactions of the four-nation delegations were mixed after their initial shock. The envoy from Kumo grinned, unable to hide his sneer. The envoy from Iowa stroked his beard, narrowing his eyes as he calculated how much benefit this internal chaos in the land of fire could bring his country. We must provide support. Seeing the daimyo in danger, Minato grew increasingly anxious and was about to move again. But the Anbu blocking them still didn't budge. The leading Anbu slowly turned his head, his voice devoid of emotion. Fourth Hokage-sama, the farce on the high platform does not require your intervention. Your Konoha's troubles are not here. He looked past Minato, his cold gaze settling on the one-eyed man behind him, whose face had gone ashen beneath his bandaged right eye. Right now, what you should be doing is apprehending the traitor who attempted regicide, Danzo Shimura. Nonsense. Hiruzen's furious roar overlapped the Anbu's words. He was trembling with rage, pointing at the Anbu leader as he shouted, "The daimyo's safety is paramount. Why aren't you rescuing him? What are you doing blocking us here?" If the daimyo of the land of fire whirred before his eyes, that would mark the end of everything. He, the third Hokage, would become a sinner of the land of fire. Minato urgently added, "That's right. Save the daimyo first. We can discuss other matters later." But no matter what Hiruzen and Minato said, the Anbu leader remained silent, still blocking them firmly, which only made their anxiety grow. Others in the Konoha camp, however, had different thoughts. Fugaku's eyes flickered as he quietly gestured to his clansmen beside him, signaling them to observe. In his view, this might be an opportunity. The new daimyo was too powerful, constantly suppressing Konoha. If he died, and that fool Shu supported by Danzo took over, it might not be bad for the Uchiha clan, or even for Konoha as a whole. A weak daimyo would benefit Konoha far more than a strong one. Hyuga Hiyashi's face was ashen, his Byakugan clearly observing something, yet he also didn't move. Nara Shikaku rubbed his forehead in frustration, muttering to himself. He had already seen through the chessboard behind this assassination. Daimyo. Traitor. Danzo. Konoha's high command. One wrong move, and everything would collapse. The Konoha shinobi's hearts wavered, none able to make an immediate decision. Above the high platform, the bloody battle only grew fiercer. To be continued. Chapter 20. Turtle in a Jar. The addition of the root ninjas was like a sharp blade, tearing through the Anbu's defenses. The tide of battle instantly reversed. The desperados who had been suppressed below the platform surged upward again under the leadership of the root ninjas, engaging in a bloody struggle with the Anbu. Kill. Seeing the path to the high platform open, Shu's suppressed roar erupted into a bellow. He gripped his blade, his bloodshot eyes locked on the richly dressed figure standing on the platform, and led his last dozen loyal retainers in a charge. The few remaining city guards blocking the way could only fight while retreating. There were no more obstacles ahead. Victory was within reach. Arashi. Shu. like a madman, roared as he charged. You thief! Bastard! Do you see this? This is the will of the people. This is divine will. No one will obey a tyrant like you. Today, I will drag you down from that position that doesn't belong to you, in front of the entire world. His roar echoed across the square, clearly reaching the ears of everyone in the viewing stands. In the viewing area, Danzo stood up, his single eye staring past the chaos ahead, directly at Hiruzen. It's all over, Hiruzen. His voice was calm and resolute. For the future of Konoha, sacrifice is necessary. This new daimyo is too strong, and his ambition already threatens the village. Above the Hokage, there should be no one else giving orders. Hiruzen trembled all over, pointing at Danzo, his lips shaking, unable to utter a word. He had never imagined Danzo's audacity would reach such heights. No warning, no testing. This was a directing blow. It was regicide. Mad. You madman. Hiruzen's voice was hoarse. I am doing this for Konoha. Danzo repeated, his tone unshaken. He looked at Arashi, who was surrounded by assassins, as if he were already dead. After he dies, Shu will take his place. A weak and incompetent daimyo best suits Konoha's interests. Then, I will personally explain to the entire ninja world that this was a righteous act to restore order. And you, Hiruzen, all you need to do is watch. On the high platform, Shu finally reached Arashi. He and his last few loyal retainers surrounded Arashi and several city guards, their blades pointed at his calm, dignified face. Shu panted heavily, sweat and blood mixing together, running into his eyes and stinging them painfully. But he didn't care. He stared at Arashi, who stood just an arm's length away, then glanced greedily at the national stone in Arashi's hand, his eyes filled with jealousy and venom. Why aren't you speaking? Shu sneered, pointing his blade at Arashi. Weren't you so eloquent, so impressive? Now, your guards, your army, can't even protect themselves. Your throne, your wealth, your woman, they'll all be mine soon. Speak. But Arashi stood there quietly. There was no fear, no anger, not even the slightest trace of emotion on his face. His deep eyes looked at Shu as if watching a clown. Are you done talking? He finally spoke, his tone calm and indifferent. You. Shu's fury flared even stronger at that unshakable composure. My dear third brother. Without waiting for Shu to reply, Arashi's lips curved slightly. Do you really think that with these desperados, you can me? Do you also think that the position Danzo promised you is one you can actually hold? Arashi stepped forward, brushing aside a city guard, completely ignoring Shu's raised blade. The invisible pressure made Shu instinctively take a step back. A useless fool who sold out the family's interests for a chance at inheritance. A stray dog I personally threw out of the fire capital. A pitiful worm who could only crawl in the gutter, waiting for scraps and empty promises before daring to bare its fangs. With each sentence, Shu's face grew paler. Each word cut into him like a knife, stabbing deep into his fragile pride. Are you even worthy of coveting my throne? The final question completely shattered Shu's sanity. Ah! He let out a beast-like roar, his long blade raised high, bringing it down toward Arashi's head with all his might. Die for me. But just as the blade was about to fall, Arashi merely lifted his eyelids slightly. Then, the world went silent. Swish, 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 swish. Countless sounds of rushing wind echoed from every direction. 1, 10, 50. Over 100 dark figures appeared silently on the roofs of the main hall, in the clock towers around the square, and from the shadows of nearby buildings. They were dressed in black combat uniforms, their faces covered by pure black masks, each holding a standard long blade. A wave of intent swept across the entire square. Thump, thump, thump. The heavy sound of armor rang out from the four entrances of the square in perfect rhythm. Squads of city guards poured in like a tide. Their steps were uniform, their shields forming an iron wall, their spear tips pointed outward, sealing off every escape route. Traitors, without mercy. The cold command was given. The city guard formations began contracting inward, their long spears thrusting like a forest of iron, mercilessly crushing all remaining rebels. In Konoha's viewing area, Nara Shikaku suddenly looked up, his face pale with shock. Hiyashi's Byakugan activated to its fullest, veins bulging on his temples. Not an illusion, not shadow clones. Those were over 100 shinobi, each with chakra levels comparable to a Jonin. Fugaku's Sharingan spun wildly, disbelief flashing in his eyes. Minato was frozen in place. Hiruzen stood stunned. In the area of the four-nation delegations, the mocking smiles on the faces of the Kumo and Kiri envoys froze. The Iowa envoy's hand, which had been stroking his beard, stopped midway. The female ninja behind the Suna envoy's pupils contracted sharply. Even Biwajuzo, who had already sworn loyalty, couldn't help but gasp at the sight of this power. And Danzo, the muscles on his face twitched uncontrollably, his single eye filled with disbelief, horror, and despair. A deception. This had been a deception from beginning to end. What weak defenses. What an unguarded daimyo manner. It was all a trap. On the high platform, Shu's descending blade froze in midair. Not because he wanted to stop, but because a black blade had already pressed against his wrist. He turned stiffly to the side, seeing a person in a black mask standing beside him. Looking around, he found that each of his loyal retainers now had a cold blade resting against their throats. In the square, the root ninjas and desperados who had been wreaking havoc were now completely surrounded. The entire plaza fell silent once again. Only the wind blew across the high platform, rustling the luxurious fabric of Arashi's robes. Everyone understood. This was a play. A grand performance personally orchestrated by the new daimyo, allowing every schemer to step onto the stage and act to their heart's content. Now, everyone meant to be on stage was here. It was time for the curtain to fall. Arashi didn't even glance at Shu. His gaze swept over the countless astonished, terrified faces, finally landing on the chief ceremonial officer, who was crouched in the corner, pale and trembling. Arashi beckoned him forward, then spoke calmly. Yamano. The ceremony continues. Yamano. The ceremony continues. Arashi's calm voice rippled across the bloody square. Yamano, who had collapsed on the ground, shivered and scrambled to his feet, his legs trembling uncontrollably with fear. Continue the enthronement ceremony in this situation. But when he looked up and met Arashi's gaze, all hesitation and fear vanished. He picked up the scroll of the congratulatory message with shaking hands, forced himself not to look around, and raised his voice. His sharp voice echoed clearly across the silent square. By the will of the land of fire and its people. The moment his voice rang out, hundreds of Anbu became Shinigami harvesting lives. No command, no roar. Aono Saku, leading them, simply made a small waving gesture. The slaughter began. PFF'd. A black blade sliced across a desperado's throat, blood gushing like a spring. The man clutched his neck, unable to even scream. Today, Arashi-sama, whose wisdom and resolve have won the people's trust, ascends to the throne of the land of fire. Yamano's voice trembled. On the other side, a root ninja had just finished forming a hand sign when a poisoned black blade pierced his chest. He looked down at the tip through his torso, his lips moved, then he fell straight down. He reformed the court and purged its corruption. Two Anbu attacked from left and right, their long blades crossing. A head flew into the air, madness still frozen on its face. The headless body swayed twice, then crashed to the ground. Yamano closed his eyes, not daring to look, mechanically reciting the congratulatory message. The sounds of slaughter behind him made him afraid to listen. He brought peace to the people and prosperity to the land. The sound of blades entering flesh, the crisp snap of bones, and dying screams. All of it mixed with the solemn eulogy from his mouth. On one side was praise for the new king's virtue, on the other was a hell of severed limbs. This jarring scene left everyone on the viewing platform speechless. When the last rebel was beheaded, only wails and heavy breathing remained in the square. Just then, in Konoha's viewing area, the Anbu leader who had stopped the Konoha shinobi slowly turned around. His gaze was like a torch, passing over Minato, bypassing Hiruzen, and finally locking onto the ashen-faced man. The one-eyed Shimura Danzo, his eye bloodshot with anger and terror. Fourth Hokage-sama, his voice was cold and emotionless, the rebellion has appeared. It is up to you, Konoha, to cleanse your own house. The Konoha shinobi were stunned. All eyes fixed on Danzo. Danzo. Hiruzen let out a roar of grief and indignation. The moment he was named, Danzo knew it was over. Without hesitation, he turned and fled. Stop him. For Konoha. Several quick-reacting Konoha shinobi roared and gave chase. This was the best chance to show loyalty to the new daimyo. Protect Danzo-sama. Around Danzo, the few remaining root operatives screamed and turned to face their pursuers without hesitation. Wind release, vacuum wave. Secret technique, mind-body switch technique. But they faced dozens of furious comrades from Konoha. A root ninja had just spewed wind blades when a Hyuga's gentle fist struck all his vital tenketsu, his chakra stagnating instantly. A moment later, 3 or 4 kunai pierced his throat. Another root ninja from the Yamanaka clan tried to seize control of his opponent's mind but was kicked in the head. His skull caved in, and blood and brain matter splattered. The battle started fast and ended even faster. In just over a dozen breaths, all those root operatives lay in pools of blood. Danzo was surrounded in the center of the square. He clutched his bleeding right arm, panting heavily, his single eye sweeping venomously over everyone around him. Danzo. You bastard. What are you trying to do? Udatain Kaharu trembled with rage, pointing at him and sharply questioning him. You have shamed Konoha completely. Surrender now. Mitokado Homura's old face flushed, filled with pain and indignation. Hiruzen walked forward step by step. He looked at his lifelong comrade, both friend and foe, now so wretched, and his heart tangled with emotion. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Strike him. His mind flashed back to the war-torn years, 2 young men back to back, sharing their last soldier pill. Hiruzen, keep going, you must survive. Danzo, we will protect this village together, until death. The vows of old still echoed in his ears, yet now he had to personally the close friend who had grown up with him. He could not do it. The massacre in the square had ended. Yamano's recitation had reached its last sentence. Now he ascends the throne to rule the realm. May the will of fire shine across the land. After he finished, his legs gave out and he collapsed. The entire square fell into eerie silence again. Arashi took the scroll. He held the national stone in one hand and the congratulatory message in the other, slowly walking to the edge of the high platform. Hey, is it not over yet? In an instant, all eyes converged on him. The next moment, they focused again on Danzo, who was surrounded, and Hiruzen, who continued walking toward him. At this moment of heightened attention, the Anbu leader appeared beside Hiruzen like a ghost. Third Hokage-sama. His voice was not loud, but it pierced Hiruzen's heart. This is an internal affair of your Konoha, a calamity you indulged. He raised a hand and pointed. First to the civilians trampled to death in the chaos, then to the 4 nations' delegations. The faces of those delegates wore the expressions of spectators. Everyone is watching. It is you who must cut out this cancer and prove to the world that Konoha can still be saved. Or do you want my liege to take action personally and cleanse your house for you? To declare to the world that you Konoha shinobi cannot even deal with your own traitors. The words were damning. Hiruzen's body trembled, his vision blurred. He understood the meaning. If he did not act, the daimyo would. For the daimyo to personally clean up a Hokage advisor would be an immense humiliation. He could feel the gazes from the delegations around him. Pity, schadenfreude, and disdain. Konoha's glory, the Hokage's dignity, were shattered at this moment. The Anbu leader's voice rang out again, not loud, but very clear. Show your aura as a ninja hero, Sarutobi Hiruzen. Let everyone see whether your fangs have truly been worn down by time. This is for Konoha. For Konoha. Those words pierced Hiruzen's last line of defense. For those words, he had compromised his entire life, and endured it. Now, for those words, he had to his good friend with his own hands. The Konoha shinobi around him did not speak, but the intent of some was no longer hidden. Do it, Hiruzen. At the end of the road, Danzo, who had seen through the situation, let out a resigned laugh. The smile held relief, unwillingness, and self-mockery. He straightened his hunched back, as if returning to those war-torn years, standing shoulder to shoulder with his close friend. To die by your hand, I have no complaints. A thunderous sound echoed in Hiruzen's mind, countless fragments of memory exploding before his eyes. The vows made as boys, sharing rice balls back to back, were crushed by reality. He suddenly looked up, and in his cloudy eyes, all tenderness vanished, leaving only endless sorrow and fury. A cage-level chakra burst forth with a thunderous roar. Shinobi nearby stumbled and retreated under the pressure. A suppressed wail, mixed with anger, echoed through the sky. Danzo. To be continued. Chapter 22. Danzo's death. Hiruzen's roar echoed across the square, filled with anger, sorrow, and despair crushed by reality. His cage-level aura was no longer restrained, sweeping across the entire venue. The air over the square grew oppressive, hard to breathe. Danzo smiled. Facing Hiruzen's all-consuming intent, he showed no intention of resisting. He straightened his back and met his old friend's gaze. There was no malice, no calculation in his single eye, only the calm of someone who had seen through everything. Do it, Hiruzen. We have contended our entire lives, fought our entire lives. To die by your hand is not such a bad end. It is only a pity that I could not see the day Konoha truly stands at the pinnacle of the ninja world. The bloodshot in Hiruzen's eyes deepened. Shut up, he roared, vanishing from his spot. The next moment, he appeared before Danzo, his weathered hand turning into a claw, thrusting for Danzo's heart. There was no mercy in this strike. PFF'd. The claw pierced flesh and blood. Time seemed to slow to a crawl. Hiruzen could feel the heart beneath his fingertips, pounding violently. It was warm to the touch. Just like decades ago, when the two shared a rice ball on the battlefield. Danzo's body shook, blood gushing from his mouth. He did not look down at his wound. He used his last bit of strength to raise his hand and gently pat the arm Hiruzen used to grab him. The movement was light, as if in comfort. Hiruzen, be careful of this daimyo. He is more evil than the Uchiha. Before he could finish, the light in his eyes went out. His arm fell limp. Shimura Danzo, the darkness of Konoha, leader of Root, a man of the same era as the third Hokage. He died because of his own ambition. He died by the hand of his closest friend and lifelong rival. Hiruzen slowly withdrew his hand. Blood dripped from his fingers, pattering onto the cold stone, blooming into tiny flowers of red. He stood there without moving, letting the wind ruffle his hair. Up close, more than half his hair was white. The ninja hero looked 20 years older in that moment. The surrounding noise could not break the silence here. The Konoha shinobi watched, their expressions complex. Sadness, anger, bewilderment, and an unspeakable sense of relief. Minato clenched his fists, nails digging into his palms. Hirazen's lonely figure pained him. But he knew that from the moment Danzo rebelled, this outcome was already decided. On the high platform, Arashi watched without a ripple on his face. It was as if only an annoying insect had died, not a Konoha Hokage advisor. He turned to the four nations' delegations on the viewing platform, clearly seeing the looks on their faces. Seeing the daimyo look over, they all lowered their heads. The Kumo envoy's mockery had vanished, fine sweat beading on his forehead. The Iowa envoy no longer stroked his beard. His hands hid in his sleeves, trembling slightly. The Suna envoy's eyes held more apprehension than shock. The Kiri envoy was equally fearful, not daring to meet his gaze. Mei trembled slightly. The cruelty and bloodshed of the hidden mist were visible struggle and tyranny. But this man before her, with his silent machinations, was unseen. He shed little blood, led them into his trap, and made Konoha's two giants each other, turning a ninja hero who had shaken the ninja world into a wretch who murdered his friend in front of everyone. Such methods, such a heart, made her feel that whether it was Kurigakure, or the resistance she and Genjutsu had formed, it all seemed like a child's game. Arashi was satisfied with their reactions. This was precisely the effect he wanted. Kill one to warn 100, deter all sides. He slowly raised his hand, his voice sounding again, not loud, but reaching every corner of the square. Saku, your subordinate is here. The Anbu leader, wearing a black mask, appeared silently behind him and knelt on one knee. Clear the battlefield, collect the civilians' remains, give them proper burial, and compensate their families. As for all rebels, display their heads at the city gates for 3 days. And the masterminds. Arashi's gaze fell on Sanji Takashi and Chiba Shu, who had long since collapsed into terrified heaps. Compared to Shu, Sanji still had some defiance. Though his legs trembled, he refused to collapse, glaring with hatred. Sanji Takashi, beheaded and displayed. Exterminate his clan. Chiba Shu, bind his limbs, silence him, and consign him to the state prison. Let him live and watch how my land of fire grows stronger day by day. Yes. Aono Saku accepted the order and signaled for men to take them away. Arashi, you will die a terrible death, you. As his fate was declared, Sanji cursed, only to be punched in the mouth by an Anbu, blood and teeth flying. Shu trembled violently, extreme fear in his eyes. He made a gurgling sound, unable to beg for mercy. Ignoring the dying dog's barking, Arashi looked toward the Konoha camp, his gaze landing on Minato. Fourth Hokage. Minato's heart tightened and he straightened instinctively. Daimyo-sama. The third Hokage is exhausted. Take him back to rest. Arashi's tone was flat. I do not wish to see a second internal strife in Konoha. Remember that. A warning that disregarded the other party's status. After what had happened, Minato bowed. Yes. In that moment, the era belonging to the daimyo began. Arashi nodded in satisfaction. He looked at no one else and slowly walked back to the center of the high platform. He raised both hands, solemnly lifting the national stone that symbolized the highest authority of the land of fire. Sunlight spilled down, and the intricate flame patterns on the stone seemed to come alive, burning brightly in his palm. He held the national stone high. Facing the multitude. Facing the world. The ceremony is complete. As the chief ceremonial officer shouted, the tens of thousands in the square fell silent for a heartbeat, then erupted in cheers like a crashing tide. Long live Lord Daimyo! Long live the land of fire! Perhaps they did not understand politics or schemes. But they had seen with their own eyes how the daimyo crushed the rebellion with thunderous means, protecting their peace. That was enough. Amid the deafening cheers, a faint blue curtain of light, visible only to him, slowly unfolded before his eyes. Ding. Main quest. Lord of the Land of Fire, Stage 2, has been completed. Quest evaluation. Perfect, with lightning speed, in the spotlight of all, cleared internal and external enemies, established the daimyo's supreme authority, and deterred petty schemers from all directions. Quest rewards are being distributed. Congratulations to the host. You have received the reward. Economic Policy Sandbox. To be continued. Chapter 23. White Silk. The grand ceremony concluded. The scent of blood had not yet dissipated, and the populace began to exit in an orderly fashion, though the fervor on their faces had not faded. They had witnessed a bloody baptism and the birth of a new daimyo. From today onward, the Land of Fire would have only one voice. That would be the voice of the daimyo. In the daimyo manor's bedchamber, the lingering sandalwood drove away the blood-stained air from outside. Arashi was already dressed in loose black casual clothes, leaning against a soft couch covered with snow-white fox fur. He held a cup of clear tea, a maid fanning him from behind, his expression leisurely and content. He had schemed for over a decade, rising from an overlooked illegitimate son to a ruler of a nation. From this moment on, whether by law or name, he was the sole dominator of this land. This feeling of holding the fate of countless lives in his palm was indeed delightful. Thump, thump, thump. A knock sounded at the door. Enter. Arashi did not even lift his eyelids. The elderly butler, Gen, pushed the door open. His steps made almost no sound. Reporting, "My lord, Kiyotsuki Yui is demanding to see you in the state prison." She asked this subordinate to convey a message. She said she spoke out of turn and begs you to give her another chance. Kiyotsuki Yui. At the name, a trace of coldness flickered in Arashi's eyes. The most pathetic thing about a betrayer is believing their betrayal is unique, excusable, and that they can always expect forgiveness. How naive. Betrayal is always either 0 times or countless times. Like a broken bowl, even if glued back together, the cracks remain. What is more, he had confiscated her family's property and executed her father and brothers. Keeping her by his side so long was only to lure out bigger fish, and to give her a chance. Now that the fish were in the net, the bait had no further use. He would not bother to glue a broken bowl. A chance? Arashi was silent for a long time. His voice was soft, but his tone weighed heavy. I already gave her a chance. She did not cherish it. One who has betrayed has no right to my forgiveness. Come here. Arashi set down his teacup and beckoned General. Gen quickly rose and approached. Arashi slapped him across the face. The blow wasn't hard, but blood welled at Gen's lip. Startled, Gen dropped to his knees and pressed his forehead to the floor. This servant deserves death. I deserve death, my lord. Get up. Yes, yes. Gen trembled as he got up. Does it hurt? Arashi asked. Gen shook his head quickly. No, no. Then it seems you have not learned your lesson. No, no, it hurts, it hurts. Good that it hurts. Remember, do not take what you should not take in the future. This subordinate will remember. I will remember. Seeing Gen's fearful expression, Arashi felt a pang of regret. Gen had watched him grow up and had been loyal for over a decade. He did not wish to scold him too harshly. Arashi's tone eased. This time is fine. Since you took it, keep it safe and do not lose it. I would not dare. This subordinate will return it shortly. If I tell you to hold onto it, then hold onto it. Quote. Yes. Gen, you watched me grow up. You should understand me. If everyone is like this, This country will rot. If the country rots, my position will not be stable, and you will receive no favors. Tears streamed down Gen's face and he knelt again. This subordinate was foolish. Fortunately, my lord reminded me. I almost made a grave mistake. Get up. As for Kiyotsuki Yui, she was once a young lady of a family famous in the fire capital, and she contributed to today's spectacle. Arashi said, calm and measured, it would be unseemly to let her die in a filthy state prison. Prepare a length of white silk and send her to join her father and brothers. Give her a dignified end. Gen bowed even lower and answered in a hoarse voice. Yes, my lord. Gen could feel the ruthlessness within the daimyo's calm words. In his heart, there was no soft-hearted benevolence, only rules. Those who follow me prosper, those who defy me perish. There is one more matter. Arashi seemed to recall something. First, go to the Konoha Annex and notify the 4th Hokage, Namikaze Minato. Tell him to see me in 3 days. During these 3 days, have him properly handle Konoha's internal affairs. I do not wish to hear any inappropriate voices again. Arashi deliberately emphasized the words internal affairs. The old butler understood perfectly. This was to have the 4th Hokage completely purge Danzo's remaining forces. Also tell him to prepare a detailed plan for the genius cultivation special fund I mentioned before, and bring it with him. Yes, this old servant will attend to it immediately. Gen dared not show any slack. After bowing, he retreated quietly and slipped out the door. Silence returned to the study. After leaving the Daimyo manor, Gen first went to the Konoha Annex. After conveying his lord's message to Minato, he did not linger, bowed, and took his leave. Next, he headed straight to the state prison. This place was used to detain serious offenders. Those incarcerated here were invariably immensely powerful or extremely heinous. In the dark, damp corridor, mold grew everywhere. Ordinary nobles, even if they committed crimes, were not qualified to be held here. When the prison door opened and Yui saw that the visitor was Gen, her eyes widened. She struggled up from the ground, asking eagerly, Uncle Gen, did he send you to fetch me? Has he forgiven me? Gen did not answer. He merely made a calm inviting gesture. Then he led Yui out of the state prison. Along the way, Yui followed anxiously. She opened her mouth several times, her voice shifting from hopeful to trembling. Uncle Gen, where are we going? My lord, is he willing to see me? Gen remained silent throughout. The carriage did not head toward the Daimyo manor, but stopped in front of a mansion that had long been sealed, where weeds had begun to grow. When she saw the familiar gate, the last trace of color drained from Yui's face. She was not a fool. She understood immediately. No, I am not going in. She shook her head frantically, tears streaming down her face. Uncle Gen, I was wrong, I truly was. Please, take me to see my lord. I'll kneel and beg for his forgiveness. Please. She knelt, clutching Gen's trousers, pleading incoherently. A trace of pity flashed in Gen's eyes, the regret of watching a young life walk toward death. He sighed softly, his voice hoarse but unwavering. Young Miss Yui, this path was your choice. He helped her up and handed her a set of clean, beautiful clothes, his tone helpless. My lord, out of old sentiment, has left you your final dignity. To complete your last journey cleanly in your own home is better than rotting in that filthy prison. Gen led her into an inner room that had been cleaned. On a low table, a strip of white silk was neatly placed. Yui's body went limp, all strength leaving her. This old servant merely follows orders. Gen said one last sentence, then his aged figure slowly retreated and closed the door. Outside the door, he stood silently, like a stone statue. A long while passed. A metallic sound came from inside. Only when the last echo faded did he turn and enter. After confirming that Yui was dead, he had her body taken away, then left. His figure once again merged into the night. To be continued. Chapter 24. Children. Arashi stretched and sat up from the soft couch. After dealing with miscellaneous matters, it was finally time to tally the gains. He dismissed all the maids. With a thought, a light blue screen unfolded before his eyes. The system's cold, mechanical voice rang out. Ding. Main mission. Dominator of the Land of Fire, Stage 2, has been completed. Quest evaluation. Perfect, with lightning speed, in the spotlight of all, cleared internal and external enemies, established the Daimyo's supreme authority, and deterred petty schemers from all directions. Quest rewards are being distributed. Congratulations to the host. You have received the reward. Economic Policy Sandbox. The screen refreshed, and a new mission prompt appeared. Ding. Current mission. Might of Lightning, Stage 3. Mission description. The Land of Lightning has yet to sign a peace treaty with the Land of Fire, and the hidden cloud grows restless. As supreme ruler of the Land of Fire, you must make the Northern Power understand who holds the balance of power, teach the Land of Lightning a lesson it cannot ignore and force it to sign the treaty. Mission reward. National Luck 1000 points. Immediately after, another prompt surfaced. Ding. Detected that the host's foundation is established, but the legacy is unstable. Triggering a side mission. Side mission. Eternal Foundation. Expand the lineage, strengthen the fire's future. Mission description. The stability of a nation rests on its foundation. As the founder of a new era, only a lasting bloodline can secure the throne and prevent future unrest. Expand your household, raise heirs, and strengthen the roots of the Land of Fire, build the legacy that will endure for generations. Mission reward. For each excellent bloodline born, the host will receive random rewards such as extended lifespan and enhanced physique, and unlock the Imperial Education template. The previous mission was quite normal. Hegemony. After all, the system was the Daimyo system. Such a mission was expected. The latter mission, however, was less conventional. But bloodline legacy did remind him that an empire of one person is ultimately lonely and fragile. To establish a truly enduring dynasty, a rock-solid foundation was needed. This mission came at the right time. His gaze then fell on the newly acquired reward, the Economic Policy Sandbox. With a thought, the screen before his eyes transformed. A three-dimensional sandbox model floated into view. Mountains and rivers, cities and villages. The entire geography of the ninja world was displayed upon it. He could even see faint glows representing population flows between cities. This was not just a model, but a living microcosm. Function description. 1. Macro simulation. The host can test any economic policy, such as tax rate adjustments, infrastructure investment, and trade agreements, on the sandbox. The system will use existing data to simulate chain reactions, economic growth or recession curves, and changes in social stability over the next 3 years. 2. Precise strike. Target specific countries, families, trade guilds, or individuals, and simulate operations such as economic blockade, asset sniping, and supply chain disruption. 3. Opportunity insight. The system will analyze economic data of various countries in real time, automatically identifying high-return investment opportunities, potential trade partners, or exploitable economic loopholes. Looking at these descriptions, Arashi's breathing paused. If talent scan allowed him to control people's hearts, then this economic policy sandbox was his sharp sword for conquering the ninja world. Setting aside the god-tier battles that marked the end of the Hokage era, every great ninja war before it was, at its core, a contest of wealth, resources, and national strength. With this sandbox, he possessed a god's eye view. He could cripple a nation economically before a war even began. Compared to the long-term plan of expanding the lineage, which required time, striking at the defiant land of lightning mattered more now. Might of lightning. Perfect. He would use this new tool to weigh the land of lightning. To see how hard their bones were. Arashi's finger traced the sandbox. He pointed to the northeastern corner of the map, at the nation ringed by mountains and thunderclouds. Activate the economic policy sandbox. Simulate a comprehensive economic blockade against the land of lightning, and deduce all possible countermeasures. Ding. Command confirmed. Initiating game theory deduction mode. Loading land of lightning high-level decision-making model, core, 4th Reikage, A. Deduction begins. Buzz. Above the sandbox, red lines representing the land of fire spread, weaving into a vast net that tightly enveloped the land of lightning. Several blue arrows shot out from within the land of lightning, striking the red net and creating ripples. New data streams and text rapidly refreshed to the side. Game theory deduction results. Phase 1, 0 to 3 months, economic impact and military deterrence. Our actions. The land of fire, allied with the land of wind and the land of earth, imposes a trade embargo on the land of lightning. Enemy response. Economic. The land of lightning's economy is hit. Pillar industries like iron ore stagnate. Domestic prices may rise by 200% within 3 months. Enemy response. Military. The 4th Reikage may gather Hidden Cloud's main forces at the border to conduct high-intensity military deterrence and force negotiations through the threat of war. Phase 2, 4 to 6 months, internal unrest and external harassment. Our actions. Maintain the blockade and dump goods via the black market to worsen inflation inside the land of lightning. Enemy response. Economic. Large-scale unemployment erupts and social conflict intensifies. Hidden Cloud may dispatch elite squads to attack the land of fire's trade routes to neutral small countries through looting and sabotage, attempting to damage the land of fire's commercial credibility. Enemy response. Stability. The 4th Reikage uses iron-fisted methods to suppress nobles advocating peace, further stimulating war potential under centralized control in the short term. Phase 3, 7 to 9 months, political division and diplomatic breakthrough. Our actions. Continue pressure and secretly fund opposition nobles inside the land of lightning. Enemy response. Political. Peace-favoring nobles may clash fiercely with the war faction, splitting the land of lightning's high command. Enemy response. Diplomatic. The land of lightning may secretly approach the land of wind, promising to supply specialized metal ores long-term at 30% below market price, attempting to break the Fire-Wind-Earth economic alliance. Phase 4, 10 to 12 months, full stalemate and multi-party involvement. Our actions. Increase military and financial aid to the opposition in the land of lightning and instigate internal rebellion. Simultaneously maintain a high-intensity border confrontation to deplete national power. Enemy response. War. The 4th Reikage shows overwhelming control, forcibly integrating domestic resources and forming a brutal confrontation with rebel forces. The war enters full stalemate. Hidden Cloud elites and rebellious noble armies clash in multiple regions, rapidly draining national power. Other nations' reactions. Land of Wind. As an ally of the Land of Fire, it likely maintains the blockade and receives significant technical and material assistance, steadily increasing national strength. It is content to see fire and lightning confront each other. Land of Earth. Publicly stays neutral and honors the blockade, but may secretly dispatch shinobi disguised as rogues to contact both sides in the Land of Lightning, selling arms for profit and keeping an ambiguous stance. Land of Water. Long isolated, after Kurigakure detects continental tension, it may frequently dispatch reconnaissance units to infiltrate the Land of Fire's coasts, gathering intelligence and waiting for an opportunity. Disclaimer. This deduction is based on the target's predetermined high-level personality and decision-making model. The system is not responsible for deviations caused by sudden changes in personality or unknown variables. Arashi noticed the frequent use of the word may in the deduction. No wonder the system included a disclaimer. However, this was sufficient. He did not need the disclaimer. He would use the deduction as a reference, not adopt it wholesale. With 5 nations and countless people involved, the variables were too great. Looking over the detailed report, Arashi's smile deepened. To be continued. Chapter 25. My rules are rules. The day after the grand ceremony, the sky over the fire capital was clear. Yet the bloody pall over the courtiers' hearts had not faded. At dawn, the civil and military officials had already assembled outside the Daimyo manor, each one standing in silence. The heads that had hung on the city gate yesterday, and the prince whose limbs were crippled and dragged away, were burned into everyone's memory. The heavy palace doors opened, and the officials filed in. A scent of sandalwood mixed with new lacquer drifted by. Yet it could not mask the heavy scent of blood in their minds. The officials took their places according to their new ranks, each bowing their heads, even deliberately slowing their breathing. Daimyo-sama has arrived. The attendance announcement rang out, and all the courtiers' bodies tensed. Arashi, dressed in a dark, gold-patterned daily robe, emerged from behind the hall. He wore no crown, his dark hair casually tied, his steps unhurried, his expression calm. It was as if yesterday's slaughter had nothing to do with him. The calmer he appeared, the more awe the officials felt. Greetings, Daimyo-sama. Led by Ito of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, all the officials knelt in unison, foreheads pressed to the tiles, voices in harmony. Rise. Arashi's voice was faint, emotionless. He walked to the throne and sat, his gaze sweeping over the slightly apprehensive faces below. Today is the first Grand Court Assembly. If you have anything to report, speak. Silence fell over the hall. No one dared to speak first. Yesterday's tragedy was vivid in their minds. Who knew which wrong word would send them down Sanji Takashi's path? Arashi did not urge them. Time passed, and the oppressive air drew cold sweat from the foreheads of older officials. Finally, a burly military official stepped forward. He was the newly promoted commander of the city guard. He knelt on one knee, his voice booming. Reporting to Daimyo-sama, in accordance with your decree, the city guard, in coordination with the Anbu, completely purged all rebels and their factions within the city last night. The principal offender, Sanji Takashi and his 3 clans, and the accomplice, Chiba Shu, have all been dealt with per your orders. Order in the city has been restored. Please instruct us further, Daimyo-sama. Arashi did not lift his eyelids. The commander understood, bowed, and returned to position with crisp movements. With the ice broken, the atmosphere eased slightly. Tanaka Shigeru, Minister of Finance, stepped forward. He bowed and reported, reporting to Daimyo-sama, the Ministry of Revenue urgently reports that autumn grain collection across all regions is proceeding smoothly. Because you abolished exorbitant taxes and levies, the people are enthusiastically paying. It is estimated this year's treasury income will be 3/10 higher than previous years. Additionally, the Ministry of Works reports that all projects of the 3-year revitalization plan are progressing rapidly. Expansion of the fire capital is 1/3 complete, and planning blueprints for various local towns have also been issued. Tanaka reported more than 10 items in one breath, all good news. These policies, once considered troublesome, had unleashed astonishing efficiency under the new daimyo's iron fist. After reporting, He lowered his head and waited for approval. You could have heard a pin drop. Just when everyone expected only a cold reply as before, Arashi spoke. Not bad. Keep it up. Tanaka's anxious expression turned to surprise. Behind him, ministers involved in the revitalization plan exhaled in relief. Praise. Daimyo-sama had actually praised them. These 4 short words excited them more than any reward. It meant that as long as they worked diligently and performed well, they would gain the daimyo's recognition. In an instant, all the ministers' gazes shifted. Fear remained, but fervor to prove themselves ignited. Arashi took it all in, a slight curve at his lips. This was the effect he wanted. As the court atmosphere eased, the gray-haired Minister of Internal Affairs, Ito, stepped forward. Your subject Ito has a memorial to present. Speak, Arashi said. Daimyo-sama, you have struck down foes both within and without with thunderous might, your achievements unmatched through the ages. Now that the new order has been established and good governance has already taken root, this humble minister believes we should follow precedent and proclaim a general amnesty across the land. It would reflect your mercy and bring peace to the people's hearts. Many ministers nodded. A general amnesty was customary for a new monarch, a way to win hearts and gain reputation with no downside. In their view, things yesterday were too severe, and it was time to use conciliatory measures. Arashi chuckled softly, his tone turning cold. Mercy. My mercy is for law-abiding, hard-working citizens. It is for civilians who lost loved ones and were displaced by war. It is not for criminals who steal, rob, and oppress their communities. He looked at Ito, prostrate on the floor. Criminals are criminals. Since they violated the laws of the Land of Fire, they should reflect on their crimes in prison. Releasing them to continue harming my people, what benevolence is that? Ito trembled, his back soaked with cold sweat. He had not expected such a direct refusal, backed by an irrefutable reason. As a veteran of 3 reigns, Ito spoke up. But, Daimyo-sama, since ancient times, new rulers have followed this precedent. It is a long-standing custom that marks the dawn of a new era. Customs? Arashi interrupted, leaning forward slightly. From the moment I took this seat, my rules are the rules. His voice was not loud, but it struck everyone like a hammer. Lord Ito, are ancient precedents more important, or are the heads on the city gate more convincing? Ito's mind went blank, as if struck by lightning. Those calm words almost suffocated him. This old subject misspoke. I deserve death, he stammered, kowtowing, his aged body shaking. Please forgive me, Daimyo-sama. Arashi leaned back into the throne, indifferent. Withdraw. Do not repeat this. Thank you, Daimyo-sama. Ito, as if receiving amnesty, trembled as he retreated. Silence settled again. Everyone understood. Those who act are rewarded. Those who talk too much invite death. This ruler cared nothing for tradition. His rules were simple, clear, and beyond challenge. The atmosphere solidified. A quick-witted minister's eyes flickered, and he stepped out. Your subject has a memorial. Speak. Kneeling, he said with a fawning smile, Daimyo-sama, you have ascended the throne, yet there is no lady to attend to you, and the foundation of the realm remains unsettled. This is not a blessing for the nation. This humble servant beseeches you to take a consort and beget an heir, that the hearts of the people may be at ease. Many immediately agreed. An heir, tied to the nation's destiny, was paramount. And if a woman from one's own family were chosen, that family would rise in a single step. Arashi lightly tapped the armrest. There is no rush. The minister quickly followed up. Your wisdom is sound. Marriage can be postponed. But you handle myriad affairs and need a confidant. This subject believes concubines can be taken first, selecting women of dignified appearance and character from noble and prominent families to enter the palace. First, To extend your lineage. Second, to display your grace and authority, and soothe the officials' hearts. Taking concubines. Extending the lineage. Arashi stopped tapping. He had not given it much thought. Conquering the world was the real business. But the ministers seemed even more eager than he was. Very well. Since it was raised, going along with it would do no harm. He nodded. There is some truth to that. There is no need to limit it to nobles and prominent families. Choose from within the country. My manor's steward will handle it. The minister was overjoyed and answered excitedly, Daimyo-sama is wise. Your subject obeys. He knew he had played his move well. The other ministers had mixed thoughts. Some regretted not stepping forward first. Others were already calculating which daughter to send into the palace. An invisible competition had begun. Arashi took everything in, then stood. For him, this was only an interlude on the long path of hegemony. If there are no other matters, you may withdraw. He gave no one another chance to speak, turning to walk toward the back of the hall. Farewell, Daimyo-sama. A thunderous response rose behind him. Only after Arashi's figure vanished did the officials dare to straighten. Many had backs soaked with cold sweat. Thus ended the first grand court assembly of the new reign. 3 days after the coronation, order in the fire capital quickly returned. The heads hanging on the city gates had not yet been removed, and wind-dried bloodstains still spoke of that iron-blooded day. Yet the streets had already regained their prosperity. The fear on people's faces was replaced by fervent adoration for the new daimyo. In their simple minds, the young master executing rebellious nobles meant he protected them. That was enough. The majesty of the daimyo manor enveloped every corner of the land of fire. The old order was shattering, and new rules were taking root. The 3-day period had arrived. Namikaze Minato once again stepped into the daimyo manor. This time, he came alone. He did not wear his Hokage robe, only a Konoha uniform, looking capable and efficient. On the way to the study, he saw many unfamiliar faces. The new maids and guards no longer looked at him with the awe they once had. He also saw several elegantly dressed young women, beautiful and poised. In groups of 3 to 5, they seemed to be admiring flowers, but their gazes toward the inner courtyard brimmed with undisguised ambition. With a new king on the throne and an empty harem, this was a heaven-sent chance for any ambitious family. Minato understood that everything here had changed. He withdrew his gaze and continued forward. Inside the study, Arashi leaned by the window, flipping through a commercial report, completely uninterested in the competition outside. The afternoon sun fell on him, making him look more like a young master at ease. You are here. Hearing footsteps, Arashi did not lift his head and spoke casually. Daimyo-sama, sit. Minato bowed and sat to the side, presenting a scroll. This is what you requested. The results of Konoha's internal affairs, and the preliminary plan for the Genius Cultivation Special Fund. Arashi gestured for him to place it on the desk, his tone light. Has everything been handled cleanly? Yes. Minato's reply was a bit strained. All root members involved in the rebellion have been purged, and the remaining personnel have been disbanded, awaiting further review. Arashi finally set down the report and sat up straight. He did not look at the root report, as if it were a minor matter. His gaze fell on the plan. Tell me your thoughts. Yes. Minato steadied himself and elaborated. The plan was comprehensive and fair. Funds were divided into 3 parts, subsidizing outstanding Ninja Academy graduates, rewarding young chunin who performed exceptionally in missions, and funding research for new ninjutsu. It focused on the village's long-term development, aiming to raise Konoha's new generation, without any personal aims. He spoke in detail, earnestly. Arashi listened quietly, expression calm. Only when Minato finished did he pick up the plan, flip a few pages, and let out a soft chuckle. Minato, your plan is very good, and very well thought out. Minato felt a slight relief. But Arashi's next words tightened his chest. But it is still too conservative, and too dispersed. Arashi placed the scroll on the table. His movements were gentle, yet they denied its value. What I want is not to spread benefits evenly. He looked at Minato, patiently guiding him. Think about it. The Land of Fire's resources are limited. If nutrients are given equally to everyone, the result is universal mediocrity. The correct approach is to concentrate resources, letting the most promising few grow as quickly as possible. When they are strong enough to create a safe haven, only then can the weaker ones gain a stable environment to grow. The strong lead the strong. Only by first allowing a portion to become true powerhouses can they protect more people. This is the best way to make the Land of Fire prosper quickly. These words stunned Minato. He instinctively felt something was off. But the argument that the strong protect the weak sounded reasonable, and he could not refute it. Therefore, Arashi concluded, this investment should be more strategic. We must pour the best soil onto the top-tier seeds. He lifted a finger, tapping the air. Yuhi Kurenai, her talent in genjutsu is once in a century. Might Guy, a pure taijutsu fanatic. With enough support, who can predict his limits? And Shiranui Genma, Ebisu, these people are treasures of our Land of Fire. Finally, his finger paused. Oh, and the third son, Sarutobi Asuma. Hearing the name, Minato's heart skipped a beat. Asuma was in a rebellious phase and at odds with the third, yet the daimyo took notice. This young man is interesting. Arashi's smile held appreciation. He yearns to protect, yet is confused by the existing order. Such an unpolished gem is most worth carving. We should guide him, make him understand that what he should truly protect is the entire Land of Fire. A chill rose along Minato's spine. He finally caught that unease. Every word from the daimyo stood on the moral high ground, caring for the younger generation. But together, they reached straight for Konoha's next generation. Daimyo-sama. Minato could not help speaking, urgency in his tone. Asuma and the others are still young, their minds are not settled. The ninja path requires tempering of will. Giving them too much too early, I fear it will. Will what? Arashi interrupted gently. Make their path smoother. Let them serve earlier. Minato, you are a genius, but sometimes your ideas are too idealistic, just like Sarutobi's. Willpower matters. But can a hungry man's will block an enemy's kunai? How long can a ninja's will last if he cannot provide for his family? Times have changed. What I want to cultivate are the nation's sharpest blades, the strongest fighting force of our Land of Fire. They must have unwavering will, and the power worthy of that will, and absolute loyalty to the nation. Minato's lips moved, but he was speechless. Every word was impeccable. Of course, I am not forcing you. Arashi seemed to see his struggle, and his tone shifted. You can treat this plan as a reserve for another scheme. The 12 Guardian Ninja, you know that title, do you not? Minato certainly knew. They were the strongest guards directly under the daimyo, the highest honor a ninja of the Land of Fire could attain. He instinctively replied, but Daimyo-sama, do your Anbu not already handle your safety? That mysterious, powerful unit from the ceremony was unforgettable. Good question, Minato. Arashi was not displeased. He looked at him with appreciation. This shows you are thinking. Anbu exists to protect the Land of Fire as a whole, to be the blade over the enemy's head, the scalpel for internal cancers. They should not be confined to my side as mere bodyguards. Arashi's voice carried force. I am choosing new 12 Guardian Ninja precisely to free the Anbu from personal duty. So they can execute more important missions. Do you understand? This is not for me alone. It optimizes the top-tier fighting power of our entire land of fire. Minato fell completely silent. The logic was flawless. He framed a private guard as serving the nation's defense. He felt caught in a net woven of righteousness, interests, and honor. He could not see its full shape, but he felt it tightening. Refuse. How? Refuse funding that would ease the village's finances. Refuse an opportunity for Konoha geniuses to rise at once. If he refused, even without the daimyo's word, the village's families and shinobi would tear him apart. I understand. After a long silence, he finally spoke, voice hoarse and dry. I will revise the plan according to your wishes. Very good. Arashi nodded in satisfaction and settled back into his lounge chair. I hope to see a new plan that reflects the Land of Fire's strategic vision. Go. Yes. Minato bowed again, turned, and left. To be continued. Chapter 27. Heavy Punches. After leaving the Daimyo Manor, Minato used the Flying Thunder God technique and quickly returned to Konoha. He did not go to the Hokage building, but subconsciously walked toward Hiruzen's residence. Since resigning, Hiruzen had stayed in his family compound and had not come out again. The courtyard was very quiet. Pushing open the door, a strong smell of tobacco hit him. Hiruzen sat alone on the veranda. He was cross-legged, with pieces scattered on the shogi board in front of him, untouched for a long time. Hearing footsteps, he raised his eyelids. Ah, Minato. Minato sat down before him, feeling that the third Hokage seemed even older. He composed himself and said in a low voice, Daimyo-sama rejected the plan. Hiruzen was not surprised and took a puff from his pipe. Smoke obscured his aged face. He exhaled a smoke ring and spoke calmly. What else did the daimyo say? Minato recounted Arashi's proposal to concentrate resources so the strong would lead the strong to come. Finally, he said, the daimyo also wants to restart the selection of the 12 guardian ninja and personally oversee the candidates. The room fell into a long silence. Only the tapping of the pipe could be heard. Hey. After a long while, Hiruzen let out a soft chuckle. Minato, do you not understand yet? He looked at Minato, his expression disheartened. From the moment Danzo died by my hand, the era belonging to the Hokage was already over. The daimyo is not discussing with you. He is informing you. Minato's expression grew solemn. Third Hokage. Hiruzen waved a hand, weary. I am just an old man waiting to die. The pipe tapped the ashtray with a crisp sound. Remember, Minato, his voice lowered, unless the daimyo harms Konoha. Otherwise, do not try to second-guess him, and certainly do not resist him. You need only think about how to secure the greatest benefits for the village under the daimyo's rules. Minato nodded, puzzled. But, is this plan not harming Konoha? No. The daimyo needs a strong Konoha, he will not harm it. Hiruzen's tone was firm. He is merely consolidating power. This blade called Konoha, the daimyo must hold it in his hand. He paused, a glimmer of light flashing in his cloudy eyes. Soon, among the daimyo's consorts, there will surely be someone from Konoha. Uchiha, or Hyuga, or others. This is also part of his consolidation of power. When all obstacles disappear, Konoha will instead receive the daimyo's full support. Minato was bewildered. Full support? Yes. Hiruzen nodded emphatically, his voice very low. Judging by the daimyo's decisive actions, the land of fire is too small. He wants more. You mean, the daimyo? Minato's heart churned. Shish, quiet. Hiruzen cut him off at once. Keep the rest of your words to yourself. But, say no more, Minato. Trust this old man's judgment. Do as I say. With that, Hiruzen closed his eyes and said nothing more. Looking at the third Hokage, bereft of fighting spirit, Minato felt a deep loneliness and powerlessness. He knew Hiruzen's heart had died with Danzo. Leaving the Sarutobi compound, Minato stood in sunlight without warmth. Taking a deep breath, the confusion in his eyes gave way to determination. He summoned the Jonin, the clan heads, and the two advisor elders for an emergency meeting at the Hokage building. Utatane Kaharu and Homura Mitokado arrived first. Then the Uchiha, Hyuga, Inoshika Cho, Inuzuka, Aburame, and other clans arrived. The atmosphere in the conference room was oppressive. Seeing everyone present, Minato spoke in a deep voice. I have gathered you to convey an important matter concerning Konoha's future. He did not state the proposal outright, but first announced that the daimyo had rejected the village's plan. The daimyo's intention is to concentrate resources so the strong become stronger. Bang! As soon as he finished, Utatane Kaharu slammed her hand on the table. Absurd. Her voice was sharp. Special funding for genius cultivation, directly funded by the daimyo manor. This is a direct reach into our Konoha and the clans. Homura Mitokado adjusted his glasses, gaze cold. Exactly. This severely damages the village's autonomy. Will the geniuses chosen by him listen to the Hokage or the daimyo in the future? This is digging at Konoha's roots. The elders, strong reaction represented Konoha's conservative faction. Uchiha Fugaku's expression was calm. He sat upright, seemingly in thought, a sharp glint in his eyes. After a moment, he spoke, voice even. I think the elders are overthinking. The daimyo's willingness to fund talent cultivation is an affirmation of Konoha. We should consider how to use this fund to cultivate more excellent shinobi, not adopt a hostile stance from the start. Utatane Kaharu was momentarily speechless. She could sense Fugaku's subtext. Hyuga Hiyashi, however, frowned deeply, his face even more serious than when he arrived. I agree with the elders' concerns. Direct support for individuals from the daimyo manor does not align with the rules. If a genius from the branch family is selected, my Hyuga will surely be impacted. For a time, everyone argued their positions. Enough. Minato pondered, then raised his hand to stop them. His gaze fell on Nara Shikaku. The Jonin commander sat quietly, tapping his cheek lightly with a finger. Shikaku, what do you think? Minato asked. Everyone looked over. Nara Shikaku calmly scanned the room and said, we have no choice. His voice was not loud, but it silenced the room. This proposal, we cannot refuse. This money is both an opportunity and a seed that will tear Konoha apart. If we accept, new conflicts will inevitably arise over quotas, and the authority of both clans and the Hokage will be challenged. If we refuse, we will be the sinners who stifle the village's geniuses and will lose the hearts of the young. He looked around and concluded, and we can only accept, or we isolate ourselves from the land of fire. Utatane Kaharu and Homura Mitokado fell silent, faces ashen. Having been in power for decades, they were accustomed to holding authority. The thought of bowing to the daimyo made their faces even uglier. When Minato put forward the second proposal, the room grew noisy again. 12 Guardian Ninja. This time there was no table slapping, no angry shouts. The two advisor elders almost deflated at once. A chill rose in their hearts. They exchanged glances, seeing deep powerlessness on each other's pale faces. The first proposal was about money, about division. The second was about power, about absorption. One pulling, one striking. One internal, one external. It was not a conspiracy. It was an open display of force. It was the force of crushing a military village with the resources of the entire land of fire. Homura's throat was dry, his voice hoarse. The daimyo is forming an elite unit, completely loyal to him. A unit strong enough to counterbalance Konoha. Utatane Kaharu's hands trembled uncontrollably. She looked at Minato, her words filled with sorrow. Hiruzen is gone, Danzo is dead. Minato, Konoha's autonomy is being stripped away piece by piece. What else can we do? Uchiha Fugaku slowly rose. His expression was solemn, without agitation, and he spoke declaratively. Elders, the 12 guardian ninja have historically been the daimyo's direct guards. This is tradition. Now the daimyo is reactivating them to demonstrate the Land of Fire's prestige. If we refuse, are we not telling other countries the Land of Fire is divided? He paused, then looked at Minato. Since it is the daimyo's will, for the Land of Fire's prosperity, my Uchiha bear an undeniable responsibility. The words were grand. He submitted to the daimyo while placing himself on the moral high ground of serving country and village. Kaharu and Homura were speechless. The meeting ended in suffocating silence. To be continued. Chapter 28. Uchiha's Stairs, Hyuga's Abyss. Uchiha Fugaku walked in front, his face expressionless, but a fire burned in his heart. Money, power, and one more thing. The daimyo manor was recruiting a new concubine. If he could send an Uchiha woman to bear a child with the Sharingan, Fugaku suddenly realized the Hokage position he had clung to in the past had become insignificant. Hyuga Hiashi followed not far behind, his face gloomy. He also thought of the daimyo taking a concubine. This was a more difficult problem for the Hyuga than the 12 guardian ninja. The Byakugan could not be leaked. But to refuse the daimyo was to openly defy him. Hiashi felt he was at a dead end no matter which way he turned. Nara Shikaku leisurely followed behind. He glanced at Fugaku's back, then at Hiashi. Genius cultivation, the 12 guardian ninja, these were all out in the open. What was truly deadly was what could not be seen. For example, taking a concubine. The Uchiha saw a shortcut. The Hyuga saw an abyss. Things are about to change. Shikaku muttered to himself in a low voice. Without turning his head, he gently waved to the people behind him. Inoichi, Choza, come to my house for a drink. Okay. Yamanaka Inoichi and Akamichi Choza responded in deep voices without hesitation. 3 figures detached from the crowd, tacitly walking toward the Nara compound. In the Nara courtyard, deer grazed on green grass in the backyard, unaware of the turmoil outside. On the stone table, warmed sake emitted a rich aroma. Choza grabbed a cup and downed it in one gulp, placing it heavily on the table with a thud. His voice was hoarse, his tone stifled. What kind of situation is this? The daimyo wants to reach into our minds. Not just our minds. Inoichi gently swirled his cup, his eyes sharp. I can feel the village's morale already wavering. Shikaku leaned against the veranda pillar, watching the deer, and spoke slowly. Because this is not a conspiracy, it is an open scheme. Money, giving civilian shinobi without background a chance to rise, they will only be grateful to the daimyo. Power, the glory of the 12 guardian ninja, can drive any clan that wants to prove itself mad. Look at Fugaku just now. He could not wait to package and offer the entire Uchiha. Choza and Inoichi fell silent. Then, what about taking a concubine? Inoichi's voice was a bit dry. A child with the daimyo's bloodline would immediately elevate that clan above the Hokage. This is the cruelest part. Shikaku sighed, helpless. The Uchiha see a ladder to heaven, the Hyuga see an abyss. And us. We cannot do anything. Choza said, what if we refuse? Refuse. With what? Do we dare refuse? Even if our 3 clans are tied together, can we stop the fanaticism of all Konoha? If it goes wrong, we will be isolated. Choza's fists clenched, joints cracking. So we just watch. What else? Shikaku shot back. Choza, Go to the Hokage building now and tell Minato our Inoshika Cho clans firmly oppose the daimyo's decision. Then tomorrow, the Uchiha will receive double cultivation funds, and our 3 clans, children might even have their academy subsidies cut. This is an open scheme. The daimyo puts fragrant bait before everyone. If you do not eat it, you starve. If you eat it, you listen to him. A long silence fell over the courtyard. Finally, Shikaku broke it. Do not participate, do not oppose, do not take a stance. We just need to watch. At the same time, Uchiha territory, Naka Shrine. Fugaku sat in the main seat, with dozens of clan members below. The atmosphere was solemn. The situation is as it is. His voice was steady, though excitement lurked beneath. The daimyo is willing to bypass the Hokage and directly support the geniuses of our great clans. This is an unprecedented opportunity. An old man with white hair and beard frowned. Clan head, the daimyo's move clearly aims to divide Konoha. Divide. Fugaku sneered. Elder, when has Konoha ever been united? When Danzo suppressed us, why did he not think of unity? Now there is a chance for our Uchiha to bypass the Hokage and communicate directly with the Land of Fire's highest authority. Why should we refuse? His gaze swept the room, noticing hesitation. He suddenly stood, arms spread, his voice full of temptation. Money, power, all can make us stronger. But these are not the most important. The most important is, the daimyo is taking a concubine. Clan members, think about it. He emphasized each word, striking their hearts. If an Uchiha woman can bear a child with the Sharingan for the daimyo, what would that mean? The air in the shrine ignited. An elder crushed his teacup in excitement. Another elder breathed heavily, staring at Fugaku. Hokage. Compared to a future monarch with the daimyo's and Uchiha's blood, what was a village's cage? By then, our Uchiha will surely become the true #1 clan in the Land of Fire. I have decided. Fugaku's voice echoed through the shrine. Immediately select 3 outstanding women of the clan, shinobi or not, as long as they are beautiful, virtuous, and firm of mind. Send them to the daimyo manor as candidates. This matter is decided by me. No further discussion. Hyuga territory. The atmosphere was the exact opposite of the Uchiha. Hiyashi's face was ashen as he listened to several main family elders argue heatedly. Absolutely no daughter of the main family can go. The purity of the Byakugan is the foundation of the Hyuga. It must never be allowed to leak. But if we refuse, it is open defiance of the daimyo. Then choose one from the branch family and send her. No. Hiyashi slammed the table, his voice cold. The branch family also has Hyuga blood. The caged bird cannot lock down the legacy of the bloodline. Once a child is born, the Hyuga will have no more secrets. The secret room fell silent. All eyes turned to Hiyashi, the young clan head bearing immense pressure. On one side was the clan's iron rule of 1,000 years. On the other was the daimyo's irresistible authority. Either choice could lead to ruin. He closed his eyes, veins rising on his forehead, the weight of the entire clan crushing him. Stall. After a long time, he squeezed out a word. As long as we can stall, we will. He opened his eyes. Only despair remained. Hokage building. Minato stood by the window, overlooking Konoha. The village seemed the same, people coming and going, peaceful. But beneath the calm, undercurrents surged. Utatane Kaharu and Homura Mitokado sat behind him, faces pale, as if aging 10 years in an instant. The Uchiha have already begun selecting women to send to the daimyo manor. Kaharu's voice was dry. Smaller clans like Inuzuka and Aburame have also sent people to inquire about the allocation of genius cultivation funds and the selection criteria for the guardian ninja. Homura added, his tone weary. And the civilian shinobi. Kaharu closed her eyes, unable to continue. Without her saying it, Minato knew. For shinobi without background who had struggled up, the daimyo's decision was a godsend. Their support for the daimyo even surpassed their respect for the Hokage. In just a few days, Konoha, once united by the will of fire, had been clearly split in two. One half were the beneficiaries and those eager to benefit, fanatically supporting the daimyo. The other half were them, remnants of the old era clinging to the village's autonomy. We lost. Homura's voice was full of powerlessness. Minato did not turn around, his golden hair dim in the setting sun. His mind raced, dissecting every move of the daimyo. First, use money to buy the lower ranks, dividing civilians and clans. Second, use power to tempt the upper ranks, worsening conflict between great clans and the Hokage. Third, use intermarriage to bind the ninja clans, making them his blades. Each step was open and above board, each step targeted the weakest desires of the human heart. Impeccable. He frantically deduced all countermeasures, but every path led to the same end: civil war, division, Konoha's collapse. Unless he bowed to the daimyo. He recalled the third Hokage's words. Do not speculate, do not resist. Only consider how to gain the greatest benefit for the village under the daimyo's rules. But would such a Konoha still be Konoha? To be continued. Chapter 29. Black Zetsu's evil plan. A dark cave. This was the Akatsuki's temporary base. White Zetsu, Tobi, emerged from a pile of dirt overhead. He gesticulated wildly, shouting in an exaggerated tone. Obito! Obito! Great news! The man he called Obito wore a tiger-striped mask. Uchiha Obito sat silently on a rock, seemingly meditating with his eyes closed. The swirling Tobi circled around him. It's incredible. The new daimyo of the Land of Fire has clashed with your Konoha's Hokage. I heard that root leader, Danzo, tried to cause trouble at the inauguration ceremony, but the third Hokage personally ripped out his heart. PFF'd. Blood splattered everywhere, it was so exciting. I wonder if a person whose heart is ripped out still poops, if. What happened to Konoha? Obito interrupted Toba's rambling, his voice icy. Oh, the entire Konoha is in chaos now. Tobi immediately got back on topic, gloating. The Hokage's orders aren't being followed outside the Hokage building anymore. Also, the Uchiha are scrambling to send beauties to the daimyo, the Hyuga's faces are pale with worry, and even the Ino Shikacho are starting to waver. Listening to Tobi, the single eye beneath Obito's mask instantly filled with crimson. A chance. This is a chance. Obito suddenly stood up, his voice hoarse and frantic. I will go destroy that hypocritical village right now. Calm down, Obito. Black Zetsu emerged from the ground at his feet, stopping him. You are too impulsive. The Sharingan in Obito's eye spun wildly, slowly converging into a Mangekyo. His tone was grim. Konoha's internal strife, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Do you dare stop me? A chance? Black Zetsu let out a mocking laugh. You underestimate Konoha too much. Hiruzen may be old, but his strength remains. More importantly, Minato, that man's flying thunder god technique has already surpassed the second Hokage. As long as he is in Konoha, it is impossible for you to come and go as you please. Seeing Obito's eagerness for revenge and undiminishing intent, Black Zetsu's speech quickened. And Uzumaki Kushina. Do not forget, she is not only the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, but she is also an Uzumaki with powerful sealing techniques. If you go now, it is meaningless except to die. At the words to die, Obito did not grow angry, but laughed instead, his laughter filled with madness. He murmured, Die. Dying is good. If I die, I can go see Rin. Black Zetsu was silent for a moment, realizing that simple threats had no effect on him. Have you forgotten our plan? Black Zetsu grew anxious. The Eye of the Moon plan. I have not forgotten. Obito remained stubborn. It does not matter without me, you can find someone else. Black Zetsu's voice suddenly grew sharp. What about your revenge for Rin? Are you going to die miserably with empty hands and go see her? Tell her you could not do anything for her. Rin's death, the fault of this world, is that just going to be forgotten? The name Rin, like a dagger, pierced deep into Obito's heart. He trembled all over, and the intent around him grew heavier. Watching Obito ignite with hatred again, Black Zetsu knew the time was right. His tone shifted, cold and seductive. Forcing your way in is the lowest form of revenge. I have a better plan, one that will make Minato taste the same despair as you. Obito suddenly turned his head, his crimson Sharingan staring at Black Zetsu. Black Zetsu spoke unhurriedly. Minato and Uzumaki Kushina are husband and wife, right? They will have a child sooner or later. And when a Jinchuriki gives birth, the sealing formula within her body weakens to its extreme. At that time, the nine-tails seal will be at its weakest. The air in the cave seemed to freeze. Obito's breathing grew heavy. He understood Black Zetsu's intention. At that time, Black Zetsu's voice was like a devil's, dripping malice. We will extract the nine tails from Uzumaki Kushina's body, then let that tailed beast of hatred and destruction roar freely in Konoha, in front of his wife, and in front of his newborn child. Let him watch everything he wants to protect be crushed to dust on the same day. Let him taste the pain of watching his beloved die helplessly. This is the most perfect revenge against Konoha and Minato. Obito's body began trembling uncontrollably with excitement. And Kakashi. Black Zetsu added, that's right, and Kakashi. They will all experience the same despair as you from losing what is precious, and all of Konoha will be buried with you. Hehehehehehe.